All right.
Okay, good. So, hey, Max, thank you for getting the minutes out. Really, really appreciate it. So we have the minutes from December and January's meeting. Has everybody had a chance in the
No,
last half hour to read those?
no,
I was talking to Hong Kong.
I'm reading them now.
So what's the protocol? Should we hold off till next month to approve them?
Yeah, you can hold off until next month. Just got to keep in mind that we haven't approved the minutes since I think like it was October or
I
so.
know it.
We didn't approve any minutes last time, and apparently we didn't approve any minutes in December. So that's just something to say. But we can
right.
we can table them to next time.
Why don't we, so I'll make an action that for all the members to please review the minutes for approval at the next meeting.
And I'll send those minutes out a week before the next meeting.
Okay. And then,
We
so I just
send them as
gotta,
an assembly of minutes so that we're not looking for the old ones.
I'll send all three, well, in this case, it's going to be 4 minutes all into one email.
Good.
all right, so I just gotta, all right, are we good?
Yep.
All right, so I just have a couple updates, on the Waldoboro Food Pantry. We got snowed out on Tuesday, and so we actually had it, we, rescheduled to have the food pantry on Wednesday. And according to Natalie, we had 107 families that came by. Just to kind of put that in perspective, that's well over 300 of our neighbors coming to get food at the food pantry.
How does that compare to another year?
It's way up. Yeah,
Okay.
it's significant. Yeah, it's a big number.
It's way up compared to last year. I mean, they were getting 60 maybe a day, right?
Yeah,
Jan?
exactly. Yeah.
And now they're at 103.
Yeah, so it's huge. By the way, of the 107, 18 were new families.
Wow.
Hmm,
Wow.
right.
Yeah,
That's not good.
yeah.
Well,
So that's I mean it's I think it's wonderful that folks have an opportunity like the Waldoboro Food Pantry. Really important, I think, at this time. And by the way, we in addition to serving Waldoboro, the food pantry also serves Noblesboro and Bremen. So I don't
Hmm.
know if a lot of people know that or not.
No, I didn't know that.
So another really, really good news for the food pantry. We've got some additional grant money that came in this month, including, Max, the town of Waldoboro through the state of Maine.
Yep.
So thank you so much for that. That's a huge, huge help to the food pantry. In addition to that, Good Shepherd, actually unannounced and without any fanfare at all, sent the Waldoboro Food Pantry an additional $3,630.
Wow.
Well, there you go.
That's great.
Getting a lot done there.
When
And-
you
and
get
it's,
money like that, are you
yeah.
able to buy, I guess I'd say wholesale or I mean, how does that work out? Can you
So the
really?
way it works, George, is it's a combination of things. We get a lot of food donated, and then we buy a lot of food. So it's a blend of. But you got to remember the other part is we got to buy stuff to make the food pantry work. So we got to buy computers and fridges and freezers
Right,
and
right.
racks and all that stuff. So it's I think. So I'm just speaking for myself here. I'm not speaking as a director of the food pantry, but I think at some point we would really want to have our own building and our own facility somewhere. So far we've been either renting or through the grace of very kind people getting free space to use.
Mhm.
But it seems to me at some point with this many families that are in need that we would want to have kind of an established location. And, you know, I'm not, hopefully it could work with Julie's idea for a, you know, a town site, which would be ideal. But at some point, I think the pantry's got to have its own facility.
Max, the Grange Hall that's in Winslow's Mills that is, is someone going to do something with that?
I figure that that's gonna be talked to the planning board section.
Okay.
That's owned by a neighbor who lives across, not by the neighbor. Her brother owned it.
Yeah.
He was going to turn it into a store and he died in a car accident on Route 95. And I don't know that it's up for sale or has been. Do you know, Max?
I mean, if you don't mind me just doing the planning board thing right now. So they are coming to the planning board next week to potentially, what would happen would they would be leasing the top floor out to Dance Mania Studio, who currently uses the Madame Macbeth location at 14 Atlantic Highway. If it's approved, then Dance Mania would just be using the Grange Hall's second floor, but nothing for the first floor yet.
Have a beautiful, brand new, only lightly used because it was never operational, fire pizza oven, wood-fired pizza oven in there inside the first floor. They did so much work on that building for over years of work to get it ready for their dream. And then the guy was killed. It was, if you get a chance to go in, I mean, it's a beautiful building. It really, it's an old building, but it's beautiful. They did so much work you can't imagine.
I think they put a septic field in too. There was a lot
Yes.
of groundwork done.
Yep. Roofing, electrical, plumbing, everything.
So
Yeah, right.
I'm embarrassed to ask this, but where is this?
On
Um,
Route
I-
32,
I
on
can
Route
show it-
32 before you get to the industrial business park on the right.
It's on the right. Yeah.
Yeah, I can show it when we're talking.
Full church?
Hold on.
It's right across the street from that, well, no, it's, well, yeah, it's almost, it's just before you get to that church that's brown and kind of falling down.
If you look at the screen
Oh, look at
where
that.
my mouse is hovering,
Ooh, nice.
That was fast.
yeah, so you see there's the
Oh, it's right,
intersection
right
across-
before. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right before. There's like a church somewhere around here, and then Grange Hall's roughly across the street from it.
It would be a
Yeah.
wonderful place for a fast lunch because the business park
Yes,
and Atlantic
yes.
Labs, there's lots of people eating lunch every day.
Yeah.
If you know anyone who's looking to do that type of restaurant, they can reach out to me and I'll tell Heidi about that. She'd probably go for that.
It's really worth seeing that building. That guy put his heart in his family. They were just amazing.
Wow.
Right? That was a,
There's one other thing that we could say about the food pantry, Jen, and that is that the transfer station donated, I think, about $1,500 split between Waldeboro Food Pantry and Cushing Friendship Food Pantry. Waldeboro's share was about a little over $1,000.
Yep.
And that happens every so often through the Clink, CLYNK organization that redeems all the bottles that people leave in the barrels at the transfer station.
Mm.
you're welcome.
By the way, Bob, anybody who is looking for a Clink bag to support the food pantry, they're right in front of my house in a plastic box.
Nice.
Okay,
It's snowed in right now, but if you wait until we get a little bit of mild weather, you'll be able to get at it.
the thing about the transfer station program is though that Clink takes them and cuts a check.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah,
They cut a check and that check
Yeah.
ends up with the food pantry.
yeah,
That
yeah,
is
it's wonderful.
good.
Yep. All right, and then, so the next thing I have for the chairman's report is Julie's email. So I could read it Bob, and then maybe you could talk to it a little bit?
Ed,
Is that okay? All right. So Julie says on February 9th, at the select board meeting, the select board will be discussing promoting Waldeboro as a item of new business. This is the product of recent discussions about goals that was had by the select board. I thought you would like to know about this and be involved in the discussions. Also, the select board would love to hear what the EDC has been working on. You are all invited to attend, as there is a limited number of folks we can have in the room at one time. We encourage participation by Zoom, as we never know if there will be a packed house or not.
Is there a Zoom,
So,
is there a Zoom link
okay, so Bob,
around?
go ahead, George.
Is there a Zoom link that someone's gonna send out?
It's
I
the
think
same
Julie
link
is going
that's
to,
used. I'll send out the link, but it's the same link that's any meeting in Waldeboro.
Right, so right now, that link for right now.
Yep, you can use that same link.
it's always the same link, isn't it, Max?
Yep.
I didn't understand that. I thought you had, for every Zoom, you had to get a different link.
No, and I
That's
can
very
talk
handy.
about that. And I can talk
Yeah.
about that more when you guys.
hey, Max,
That's
Max,
really-
if you could still send it out to the EDC, that would be a good reminder anyway.
I can do that, but if I can quickly show you guys a fun quick thing regarding
Sure.
these meetings. So if you ever lose the link, you can go to waldeboromaine.org and on the Stay Connected tab,
Hmm.
you'll see everything talking about these meetings. There's a little guidance document right here that'll talk about like, conduct you should do, and it also includes the link inside as well as the phone number. Takes a minute to load apparently. See the link right there. And it just talks about, the basics for those who don't know it. And then let me go into a different tab and have this. And then if you don't want to go through all that, you can just click here. And then it's launching Zoom for you. But let me close that
All right.
because then it gets into weird paradox.
Wow.
Bob,
So-
if it makes you feel any better, Bob, it was literally today that I realized that the same link goes to the meetings, the same meeting. Today, I found that out.
That makes me feel better, George. Thank you.
Good. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
So I'll still send out those link reminders, but if you ever lose it, you can go to the Waldeboro website and you should be able to find it.
So Bob, is there any background to Julie's initiative?
Well, the topic came up because we were talking about goals for Julie and the select board and so forth. And one of the comments, I think it was Jan Minzy who made it, was that, we've been known as the town of the five-masted schooner for decades, and we don't even have a schooner in town. So the thought was maybe we need to talk about somehow rebranding Waldeboro or enhancing the branding of Waldeboro. And one of the ideas that hit the floor immediately was, well, we really are the clam capital of Maine. Contrary to what Yarmouth may claim, we are the clam capital. So maybe that's something that we can build on. But the idea is to get as many ideas on the table as possible. And that's why it would be great to have this committee participate in that exercise.
That
Is that-
reminds me a little bit, Bob, of the discussions we were having when we did the brochure. And the
Yeah.
idea that, being the clam capital is wonderful, but if you don't have a place to actually eat the clams.
Yep. No, and that's been one of the goals, is to get the clam shack.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
I don't want to dream too wildly here, but maybe we will somehow obtain the old Sylvania parcel. Maybe that'll actually happen. And if it does, well, the Hofs's house is part of that. And maybe that could become somehow related to the clam idea. Maybe it becomes a shellfish museum. and a clam shack. I'm just thinking off the top of my head here.
Yeah,
but it's still very much of interest to people. Love to see something happen.
by the
You
way,
know,
I don't
this
know
is-
if you know this, but that house is listed for sale.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not in very good shape. It's listed pretty low.
No, it's, there's nothing you could do with it, but you could
Yeah.
buy it.
Yeah.
You
Well,
should be aware that there's more seaweed processed in Waldeboro than any other town in the country.
Well, that's another one, George.
Wow.
It does not have much sizzle.
Hey, clams and seaweed, they kind of go together.
Yeah.
Well, working waterfront, it actually is, not that Friendship isn't a working waterfront, and I mean, we got lots of working waterfronts, but anyway, good luck
Yep.
with that.
Clam bake capital of the world.
There you go.
A lot
Mm.
of possibilities.
Yeah.
Or Jeff
That's
Hurd lives
interesting.
here.
And it's actually not a bad idea that we start thinking about these things, even though we're in the middle of this pandemic, but it's a good time. We've got lots of free time, sort of, so it's a
Yeah.
good time to be thinking along those lines, I think.
So I hope everybody is, makes it to the meeting and comes and participates. Be great.
Are you going to do some kind of process?
I'm not sure what Julie has in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're just going to have to see what she has up her sleeve.
Yeah. I think, here's what I think about a lot, and only when I can't sleep, really, which is more often than I want to admit. I think a lot of things are going to change, excuse me, by the time we come out of this. And I've been watching, I think I talked to Bob once about this. I mean, I've been watching how distribution is changing dramatically and becoming much more regionalized in general. I think people's shopping habits are going to change. I think food is even going to change in terms of distribution. And I just think that this has been long enough that it's going to change some people's habits of how we get our needs met. And I think it's an interesting thought. I've always had this wish that we could somehow take better advantage of the fact that the big fiber cable comes right through Waldeboro on Route 1. I mean, that's a big asset in terms of a utility. And it could support a big technical business. Distribution centers need technology as well. I guess I just think there's going to be changes. I don't know which way. You watch what's happening and how the big companies are changing things. I mean, the shipping over the holidays was a disaster, and I work in that area, and it was a disaster for 3 months. We're just starting to come out of it now, and it is really pushing shipping carriers and distribution companies and people who sell in big, a lot of sales. Amazon being one of them. I mean, they're actually buying space regionally in some malls that is empty to create mini kind of Amazon warehouse distribution centers. So it's just, it's changing. Maybe we'll be part of it. I don't know, because of our location on the coast, and we got 32 and 90 and 220 and, Route 1 coming through. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, the hub of the mid-coast.
I think it's a possibility. I mean, we got the train eventually. Things may change with the train. A lot of things could change. I mean, it could either push forward some of the passenger train thing eventually when we get vaccinated. I mean, you never know.
I don't think I'm ever gonna fly as often as I used to.
No.
I mean, Zoom meetings are very effective.
Zoom meetings work beautifully and easier to attend.
Yeah, especially compared to checking into a hotel in
Yeah.
Las Vegas, or, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even for local meetings, if we had bad weather, could still have a meeting, it's just very,
We've got to get Max to get a lower camera though.
Well, usually I'm not here.
they're not gonna let you.
Well, you don't know how my whole setup works. That's the thing. Like my laptop's on a little shelf right up here, and then I have a monitor
Oh,
down here.
okay.
Oh,
So so as far as this meeting goes, Jan, are you going to be our spokesperson, I hope?
I was gonna,
Yes, yeah.
yeah, I was gonna
Happy
jump
to.
in and say that what Julie pretty much wanted to know is that someone from the EDC will show up at the meeting next week and be able to give us some type of presentation of what the EDC is hoping to be doing and what the EDC's been doing. Can't say too much because of COVID and how 2020 worked out for meetings, but in terms of what we are doing or going to be doing, it's mostly looking at the properties and starting to work on an EDA project.
yeah.
This is, I think, related. Saw an article in the paper today that CMP is reconsidering what it costs to hook solar to their grid. Is that gonna get, that really like, how can you do that? Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I saw that article too.
Where
We've
was it?
got
I wasn't
two
too thrilled
big, we
seeing
got
that.
one done and one almost started.
Yep.
I think it's this transition period we're gonna be going through in terms of energy. It's gonna be bumpy. Don't you guys agree?
Yeah.
The guys who've been making money all this time are really gonna resist, when they can. And perhaps they don't understand it might be too late to resist at this point.
I think the other thing to keep in mind is that we're gonna have a government that's gonna be very supportive of renewable,
Right.
a renewable approach. And so, I think Central Maine Power, they might want to look at, reducing the amount of solar on the grid, but I don't think the feds will let that happen, or the state.
I
At
would
this
think that if
point,
they were smart, they would get onto the wagon and ride it in the direction it's going.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable that they're, well, you know what happens, George, is that the state has to mandate it. Once the state mandates it, then the utilities are obligated to meet the requirements. So in California, the state mandated, whatever the number was, I can't remember what it was now, it was like 20% renewables by 2020, and then 50% by 2025 or some crazy number. But the state mandates it to the utilities, and so they've got to comply.
The
What do
problem
they
I'm
do with-
afraid of is that if I were Mr. CMP and with a PUC that guarantees me a certain level of return on my investment, I would just be saying, yeah, we can do this, but this is what it's going to cost you. And then all of a sudden the momentum slows down because nothing is quite as good an idea as it was last year.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't know about that, George. I mean, you could make the statement that it's going to cost you more to have renewable energy on your system, but is that true? I don't know.
Well, no, only if CMP somehow gets to renegotiate after the fact. That's all I meant by that.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, it's going to be an interesting time because they're building out that thing towards Canada anyway.
Yeah.
And there's no pushback right now from the state. They're
By the
sending.
way, and all that, Jen, all that energy is renewable.
Oh, I
It's
know.
all hydro.
Yeah, I know. But they're sending out turnoff notices in the middle of winter this year, which never was permitted before.
Mm.
And you see people all over, having trouble paying things because of COVID and all that. So it's gonna be a little bit weird trying to figure out, which way is gonna be. Maybe we'll have to do some experimenting.
If if the, and I listened to a meeting the other day about AD Gray, and I never quite figured out why you couldn't have your recreation and your building, but is that going to be part of what the selectmen want to hear about? Or if we, I mean, we haven't done anything to
No.
do with that.
No, that
Okay.
wouldn't be us because that wasn't really part of the properties we've been looking at.
Okay.
They have their own committee, don't they?
Yeah,
George, I'm pretty sure this is more like a 10,000 foot kind of thing. You know, in
Okay.
terms of promoting Waldeboro and what's the attraction? How do we, honestly, it's really like when we were doing the brochure.
Yeah.
How do we attract
Wait.
people? How do we attract business? How do we attract young people? How do we keep young people that are here? I mean, all those things. It's all the,
Oh, what
really, I
about-
think that's what she's talking about.
What about finding out about the new families who've moved in? Have you found anything out about those families, Max? Can we like, is there a way to see a survey of, are they young families? Are they retirees? That kind of thing?
I haven't done anything like that. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. But I mean, is it possible to figure that out?
well, we
don't
know
know.
who
I
they
think-
are. It's labor intensive.
Yeah.
If they
Yeah,
bought, we know who they are.
The brochure, the flyer that we worked on before, is that something you can get onto the screen if you're doing a 5,000 foot view? I mean, that is an accomplishment.
Yeah, I can put the brochure under something.
I mean,
I think that
that's,
actually would be really good to do. That's a good idea, George.
Yep. You
make
do
it
that
look like,
during the meeting, Max.
Okay.
And the thing is that we did do at one point, we brainstormed through what the assets, the structural and infrastructural assets of Waldeboro were for a business.
Mhm.
So we have that big fiber cable going through. We have lots of property and space that's developable that wouldn't impact negatively for residential areas. We have we have we have pretty good services for a town, actually, our size. I mean,
So Jen,
Yeah.
you remember what our catchphrase was, right?
no, go ahead, remind me.
We're the hub of Midcoast.
Yes, that's right, the hub. Yeah,
And that kind of, it's exactly kind of what you're talking about. We're the hub
Yeah.
for fiber, we're the hub for streets, we're the hub for George for aquaculture. I
yeah,
mean, we could really build on that, I think.
I like that. That's a good one. Yep. And it's we didn't used to be known. I mean, people didn't used to believe that we were a business friendly town, but I think we may be beyond that. I don't know. Max, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd say we're probably more business friendly. I mean,
So that's a good
planning
thing.
board's pretty good and on top of things. They I know this is probably throwing a little shade, but we're not Rockland right now. I don't know if anyone's been following the newspaper on that one.
no.
No.
There's this whole legal dispute going on regarding a cell tower being put up there that's been going on.
Oh, I read that one. Yeah.
Yep,
Is that a not in my backyard thing?
kind of. And it's now turned into this thing where like the city council is fighting the planning board, trying to force this through. It's something.
Ooh.
That I can tell you it's something.
All right.
I would imagine Rockland is one of those places that's going to have a bit of a rocky time too, because they have so many Airbnbs that had to close down. You got to wonder what might happen to all those properties empty for too long.
I don't know.
So
Yeah.
this is a good segue. So I'm pretty much done with the chairman's report. And so I don't know if there's any other town news, Max, beyond Julie's email that, and the things that you've already told us about that you would want to share.
Mm.
Ooh, the new businesses, Max. The new coffee place on Route 1 that's going to be the drive-through.
but I think that can be like planning board updates. So
Okay.
let me just do a screen share just because it's gonna.
And we have no planning board members, right?
Scott cannot make it tonight, unfortunately.
We have Max.
That too. The coffee place, because I keep getting people seem to have been getting a wrong impression that it was like over where Bella Gio's was. It's not over
No.
where Bella Gio's.
No, I thought it was right next to the car place.
Yeah, it's where these trees are. And
Yeah.
if you're curious what these green blobs are, that's just from the, you'll see it over here, National Wetlands Inventory. You can go ahead and get rid of that.
Oh,
So this is essentially the spot it's going to be at. And it's going to be like right behind the tree. People will come in, order right here, and then it's going to be a big old loop. And you order out here and then get back on Route 1. It's going to be one way in, one way out.
As I understand it, it's going to be made from our ocean container.
Yep, it's going to be a modified shipping container.
I
I think-
think that there's a message in the planning board's willingness to do that. Because it wasn't explicitly allowed in the language that we came up with, but if they do it nicely, anyway, the point is if there's a litmus test for the planning board, I would suggest that they're receptive to things.
Right. This was talked about in the land use ordinance committee, where the section I think you're talking about, that was for the shipping container being used as an outdoor storage. This
Yeah.
is outdoor storage. This is just going to be using it as it's using it as a spot to conduct business out of. So
Right.
it doesn't really fall into that same category.
but you guys have seen what they're doing with those old shipping containers now, and they remodeled them into these beautiful buildings.
There's
Mhm.
a shipping.
They can be
container-
really beautiful or really ugly.
No,
Well,
there's a shipping container park in Tucson.
Mm,
That must have 40 containers in it. And it's like walking through a little village.
yeah.
It's really nice, very tastefully done.
Hey,
So
Max.
that's the
Max.
coffee place.
Max, before you leave that,
hmm
can you make a left turn from northbound 1 into the coffee place?
I mean, if
Ooh,
you're going here this way,
No,
Yeah,
northbound.
northbound. So can
Oh.
you make a,
yeah,
no?
not busy. Yeah, if it's not busy, you can do the left turn.
if you
Because that
step
could
on,
be a mess, right?
It could.
is there a regulation relating to it? Let's do it that way.
Well, one of the big condition is that they have to have in writing from MDOT that this is fine. Like that's
Yeah.
the thing there.
Probably grandfathered. There was a little food place there that I used to go to.
Mm,
Because it's a different use, it has to still go through MDOT to get permission. That's what we had to do with the food pantry over on technically 220.
It was sort of antiques for a while, but before it was antiques, it was food.
We're talking about where the food pantry is right now, right?
No, we're talking about
No.
where
We're
your
here.
cursor
the
is.
coffee. place.
Right. It doesn't matter. It's still been out for a while and they're changing the use to now a drive-through coffee place. So it still needs MDOT to sign off on it. And I said, if you have something that says that, you're fine doing it as is, then hold on to that writing for dear life and show it to me. And they haven't shown it to me. So they have to go back to MDOT and show me that they're fine with this. That's the biggest condition of it all.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So then the other thing that was approved was the solar farm over here on Controversy Lane. With a second for the parcels to show up. Essentially what'll happen is here's North Nobleboro Road, here's Controversy Lane, going all the way down. This will be improved to the travel width standards of our ordinance. And then this area will be developed into the solar farm.
Is that trees now, or is that?
Yep. Yep,
trees?
it's currently trees.
So they're gonna cut down all the trees?
Yep, they'll be cutting this area down, and let me see if I know it's going to send me all the way down there. But I'll show you the extent of it. If it loads. So they're going to be developing it where they're going to respect the property lines right here and only be building primarily on the right side of this Pemaquid River stream right here.
So they're not changing that water path?
Nope, they're not changing the water path. And I mean, if we get the parcels to load up, then it'll be good. But something that I was thinking about was because we had enough space in the TIF, and because this is going to start being developed next year, I would want to try and move so we can capture the entire solar farm and put it in the existing economic TIF, so that we can get some other land value revenue from it.
Uh-huh.
This one over here, the Travis Reed one, we're not going to get that. That's supposed to be done soon, and we kind of missed the boat on that one. But
What's the pale green over there on the Travis Reed side?
yeah, the pale green is the more serious wetland area. Like
Oh,
green, it's fine. It's not really that big of a concern. But the light green is the more resource protection area. And then the blue is water, pretty much.
water, yeah.
Yeah. So here we go. Yeah, as you can see here, this is going to be the property line. We're going to be building
Yeah.
primarily
Is
down
this
here.
solar, is this an is Buddy Brown selling them that land or leasing them? Do you know?
Buddy Brown is selling the land. Yep.
Because I think Travis is leasing his.
Yeah,
Yep. And I think it's only just barely going on to the second lot. But yeah,
Yeah.
I want to look into possibly, because I think there is enough space to get both lots into the TIF district and just start using that for some economic funds.
does that have to go
Yeah.
to the voters, Max?
That would have to go to the voters because we are amending the TIF plan.
Can we do it in June?
We can do it in June. We can do it in
Great.
What does the dark green color signify?
Dark green isn't that serious. It's just saying that maybe during the most rainiest day of the year, at the most, when it's not that dry at all, it's just going to get a little water pools or something. It's nothing serious. I know you're looking over here.
Yes, I am.
It's nothing serious.
Okay.
It probably means that springtime runoff and mud season is particularly wet in those areas.
It pretty much it's that. Like,
Yeah.
it's sloped in a way so that it's all going to pool up in this area.
Yeah.
This, I was just going to touch my screen, but that doesn't do any good. The little creek that comes down and has a little hook in it right behind Bob Morse's area there, and then comes out and goes under the river, under the road. I'm surprised that doesn't have light green around it because it's some real wet areas back there. You know where I mean?
I know what you're talking about, but again, I'm not
I wonder how they
I'm not the
arrived
one
at
who
those.
I'm not the one who made the whole thing. This was the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. This was their map.
Okay. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not building anything there. Okay. Well, that's a good map to see.
Yep.
It is, isn't it? It's a great map to see.
It's a map that I wanted to use for some of the properties that I was going to show you, just
Yeah.
so I could talk about some of the ideas that I was thinking about. Is that what we were going to talk about, or did we want to do
Sure.
something else? Because it's also almost 8 o'clock.
Go.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably have enough going on right now with, without getting into that, but I'll leave it up to the group.
What were you going to show us, Max?
Sucker.
Well, Jan just wanted me to focus on like 3 spots. So the first was over here. This was the little spot next to Route 1. You can see where the problem is right now.
Oh,
It's not, I would say it's not the best one to develop on.
yeah.
And I spoke with Chief Paul Smeltzer about this. He said it would be nice to have this as like some type of shack just to put a truck up there. And, you know, if there's an emergency somewhere in North Waldeboro, we have a truck right there. It would be right in the middle of Jefferson Union, and we can get a more immediate response. I think it's valued at like $3,000 just for the land itself. That's the only use I can really see for it. There's
I don't know where you are. Zoom out for a minute.
That's Old Augusta Road?
Yeah,
Old Augusta Road, Washington Road.
Okay,
This is the intersection. Morse's Sauerkraut is somewhere up here.
yeah.
It was that
So-
tiny piece of land that Max showed us the last time.
Yeah. Yeah, the tiny piece of land's like entirely filled up by this area.
Yeah, it's
So-
wet.
So the only thing that seemed to get interest from someone at the town office was just Chief Smelter, and that was just to find a place to put a fire truck in North Waldeboro, have a volunteer up there, and if there's an emergency, we can get a truck there a lot faster than the surrounding towns or Waldeboro
Yeah.
itself could get up there. But it's not the best land.
Hmm.
3,000, we could just see if one of the neighbors are interested and just get a few $100 out of it. So that was the first one, which is disappointing because I was looking forward to that, but I saw the wetlands and thought, it's not the best. Quickly at the industrial site, I know there was this little bit that was up here and then the corner here. This northern part actually isn't owned by the town. That was just an outdated item on the list. So it's privately owned. We don't have to worry about that. Whereas this corner square, I talked with John Day a little bit more about that. What he suggested was selling a bit of this property right here to the abutting neighbor, and the rest here looking to possibly widening Cross Street. I don't know. That's something George might have to give his 2 cents on, of widening Cross Street so that trucks are given a bit more room to turn or something. Is that a,
I've driven through that intersection, I can't even tell you how many times in 45 years. Cross Street just got better when they fixed the bridge up, but I'm not sure. I think there's always going to be a bottleneck at the bridge and at the other seaweed factory. I mean, it's not like it's going to become much better by widening any of it. I mean, the corner intersection certainly should be made so trucks can turn. But
we're talking, yeah, and that's what we're talking about. That was what John Daigle was suggesting, just giving it a little more room right here, just so it's a lot easier to turn onto it or turn off of it.
That was a house lot with a trailer on it forever until the last 15 years. I don't know. Well, yeah, it was a house lot with a trailer on it, and I think it had a septic system and probably even, I don't know if it had a well or not, but it's a corner lot that could be put to some use. I mean, I don't know who, you said the town owns it?
It is town owned. Yep,
Okay, they must have acquired it when no one would pay the taxes.
possibly. But that's what I'm just saying. John Daigle's just cut this bit off. I think it was this bit. Sell it to the neighbor, and the rest of this is just used as a widening, essentially. for
Mm.
Front Street.
Sometimes people fish off the bridge. You could put a little parking place there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's an option.
That's a great idea.
Probably the top part right here, wide,
Yeah.
and then right here you would have just a little parking area. I don't know how far would that be from the intersection. Probably be we would just have to work with the numbers a bit more. A good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea, though.
That was that one. And then here you're going to see the wetlands for the pump station. As I say, the green is where the resource protection is. You can see the dark green. But you see where you see why we can't really sell this top area. That's not something you can do too much work on. And again, speaking with John Daly, he didn't want to do much work over here. He didn't want to sell this area. He said we couldn't sell it, so I question that, but I didn't want to get too much into it. But there is still a lot of area here below the pump station and above the pump station to possibly do something. And then
Is that all pretty flat in there, or is it cross-country?
Looks like,
let me get the contours.
is it dirt or is it just
I think it's hayfields kind of by the looks of it.
hayfield?
It's vegetation and it's pretty scrubby.
Scrubby up.
Maybe that's not going to work.
Well, it's relatively level. I just wondered if there was anything crazy going on there.
No, it's
I
relatively
think it would be
level.
nice- I think it would be nice to preserve it as a resource protection area for our water wells.
For
Well,
the
yeah,
the
you
entire
can't do-
lot.
Yeah,
you
I'd put
can't
the
do
whole
anything
thing into
impactful
resource
in the
protection.
lot.
All right, George.
If you did that, could you then designate uses like recreation or other things on it?
You'd let people hunt on it.
Or farming even? I mean, like if it's hayed now and,
Well, it's not hay. I don't think you can farm that, Jen. I'm
Okay.
not the expert, but I don't think you can. I may be
I
wrong.
don't think you could fertilize it, even if you wanted to.
Exactly.
Right,
You're
right,
You're
right.
right on the river there.
There's the contour lines. It's not bad. It's relatively flat. Some areas.
do you know if there's any snowmobiling in there already?
I think
I'd have to get the snowmobile map for that.
the snowmobile comes through my property and then crosses beside the railroad tracks. I think it crosses the river, so it may actually do something over there.
Yeah.
All right. And then the town lot that's over here, that was for the water pump, that I would have to talk, no, I'm sorry, it should be,
That was pretty small, wasn't it, Max?
yep. Not much can be done on the property itself, but I think what I'll be doing is speaking more with the utility district to see what the capacity of it is. Because I think the most obvious thing to do if we're doing an EDA project is to expand that water system either down Route 1 or down West Main Street. But that's something I need to check with the utility district to see if it is, if it's enough water to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we expand it and only 2 businesses or 2 homes,
Yeah.
it's not worth the investment, especially when at the bottom of Atlantic Highway you have water and sewer right there. And
Yeah.
So that's another one that we would just preserve.
right, we wouldn't really be doing anything. We wouldn't sell it. We wouldn't be doing any development on it.
Yep.
And most of the smaller properties over here, let me turn this off. Some of the smaller properties, I would just throw into the overall EDA project of a river walk if we could. Like we have the river, like we have the rest area. Hopefully we'd get the pedestrian footbridge to get to Elm Street. You'd have the little pocket park right there, just for someone to sit down so that they can walk along Elm Street, see the rocky area and whatnot. Except this one down on Mill Street. I'm still in the camp of maybe just selling that because it's so small and worthless. But
That would actually be a really nice little park area right where you were.
right
there.
here, the Mill
Yeah,
Street
'cause
one.
yeah, it's a really neat little area. That's where
Probably
the
have-
old, there used to be a bridge there at one time, right?
Yeah. And then the other half of the bridge got sold to this person. So unless they're looking at selling it back to town, so there's a little pedestrian footbridge to get to Mill Street. That's why I'm in the camp of maybe selling it. Maybe eventually there, but then this neighbor probably won't like the idea of someone just sitting across.
And watching. Hey,
But
Max,
anyways.
where's the piece of property, the little one, I think where your arrow is now? Is that what the Conservation Commission wanted to do
But a
something
pocket
with?
park, yep. over here on
Okay.
Elm Street.
Okay.
But the rest area idea could go there, and then once
Mhm.
Jefferson, there would be hopefully a way we can connect it to the 80 grade trail that's down here.
Mm.
There would be the culvert right over here to connect the town office. And then you can walk down Jefferson Street, find a better connection down here. And then we would just be working with some other property owners, getting that type of riverwalk going over here. We would need to speak with Henry Cabot about connecting these three properties together. The town does own this one right here at the intersection of Pine Street and West Main Street. And then we obviously own Pine Street. So if Henry Cabot was open to selling, then we could combine the three, turn this into, well, we would be able to shift a lot more of the greenery and improvements right over here for people who want to just sit down and look over the river. Hopefully tie it over into here with the parking area.
What's going on with the old button factory now?
It's privately owned by, I can't remember his name.
Bobo.
Bubba
Bubba.
Hagel here.
And that's his residence and he does stuff there?
Last time I recall, he was there, but he goes to Florida during the winter.
Yeah, he's there in the summertime through the fall.
Yeah.
It's an amazing piece of property
Mm.
if
Yep,
you've got four-wheel drive to drive down the driveway.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm surprised he still kind of has it. I don't know if he wants to do anything else with it.
It was on the market for a couple of times for $1 million.
$1 million. No.
Yep.
It's got some of the same big old timbers, the big yellow pine timbers that they were using 100 years ago, like in the old mills, big 12 by 12 yellow pine timbers. They used to drive forklifts around on the second floor. That's amazing.
Actually, he's done some beautiful things once you get inside there on the first floor. He's made beautiful glass windows and carving and wood, beautiful wood finishes of things. So
A very interesting guy.
yeah, different. We have a lot of interesting people in Waldeboro. Very creative and talented and interesting people.
Well, just to finish off my point, the last sort of two spots together. Over here, there's the water tower that's behind the food pantry, and then there's Friendship Street School, which is right across the street. Friendship Street School, right now Head Start using it, and once Head Start moves out, I think that might be a conversation that the town has to have of what to do with it. I think with how it is, it's something that probably should be sold, except maybe the waterfront area. If that can somehow tie into this whole river walk, that would be great. But I think it's a very valuable piece of property, but I don't think we'd be using it too much for anything.
If
But
you-
that's my 2 cents though.
When you use the word Riverwalk and you've got your cursor where it is, that little point is a sunken boat, remember? Right there.
Yeah, that's why I would like to keep it. That can be like a little stop on the tour.
Yep. And someone could even take a few layers of grass off the top and you'd probably have a very interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, that's there it is.
Zoom,
that
zoom
would
in
be-
on that.
Pretty sure this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, in the history of Waldorf, one of the books, the blue ones, it has a whole page on that ship that came in a boat, and they were going to fix it, and then they didn't, or something.
But yeah, anyways, that's just what I was thinking. It would be nice. The button factory it would be, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with that button factory. It's always up in the air. And I guess, Jen, who'd you say it was? Bobo?
Bobo, yeah,
Bubba Hackmeister.
yeah.
I
Had a
guess,
sandwich named after him at the Narrows.
I don't know how much he's fixing the building up for, and I don't know what he plans on doing. So I'm not that
Well,
direction.
it's a tough building to rehab because the ceilings are so low in the upper floors.
Mm.
They're
And
very
it's a
low.
lot of money. I don't think anybody's got that kind of money, who's, I mean,
I think if someone said that number, it meant they didn't want to sell it.
yeah, I know.
But anyways, with this here Friendship Street School, I mean, there's a lot of acreage tied to it that just gets to the water. I mean, we could probably cut off just the school itself. And because it's in the historic village, it doesn't have a density requirement. So 0.34 acres just for the building it alone. The playground could be right next door to it, or we might decide to just sell the whole lot. That's just me. I just see it as a place that potentially could be sold once Head Start's out. Because once Head Start's out, I don't know how many people want to go into the building.
Hey.
What's compelling? What is the driver that's pushing or that's making them leave, Head Start leave?
I think they just want I think they just want another building, probably something closer to the school.
Calendar, work 4.5 hours.
Just because I know when I've talked with someone from Head Start, not this specific Head Start, but a different Head Start in the Midcoast, they said that one problem was always transportation. Getting the parents to drop off a kid at the Head Start program before school. If it's right next to the school, the parents probably already on the way to work, or they would have been dropping the kid off to school anyway. So it's very convenient for them.
Right.
Same thing if they have an after-school program. The kid's right next to the Head Start's right next to school, so the kid can just walk over. It's simple like that.
We have discussed the idea of putting Head Start into the new medical arts building if that ever happens.
And that would be good because it would be, depending on where it is, if it's over near the ball fields, then it would be right next to Miller School.
Yep.
Good. So then the last property that really had some stuff to talk about was this one right across the street that has the water tower. You all might remember it since it's the one that is an unusual spaghetti lot. It has the entrance from the food pantry. It can go all the way to the railroad.
Wow.
I've driven up here in the past. There's not much you can really do. It also gets very steep. I think the ridges around here. I mean, I'm just automatically in the boat of chopping off at least. Hold on. Chopping off at least this maybe. We could preserve that part. That's to the north. Just keep that town off it. Keep that for the town office because it's the water tower. We want to have a good water supply down there. And then just see what the neighbors want to do for buying up the remainder of this property. But that was really it. I know, George, you were talking about a windmill or something, but I don't know how many wind turbine people are interested in putting anything that would be. I don't know how they would get it built all the way down here. That's the thing.
Well, I think if you were going to do it, I think you'd put it just under or at the peak of the topography there, which is probably not too far from where your cursor is.
Right, but let me pull up the contours. Because I think what were you saying? Oh, here.
Well, I mean, if it was wind, and it seems like there's more than that making sense. I mean, all the alternatives are starting to get economical and faster than people expected. It's not very wide, but you could. The interesting thing about windmills is you can have them behind each other and they keep working as long as they're not shadowed.
Well, the reason I am just bringing all that up is right here, you can see already the kind of steep drive up.
Yeah.
The road itself kind of stops once you get to the water tower. So,
And then it looks like it's quite, I can hardly see the lines, but it looks like they're very close together right there.
Yeah, looks
Yeah.
very steep.
yeah, this is where, around here, I believe, is where the ridge is. Where it's like the highest point you can get.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying the road stops here. I'm not sure how they get all their equipment over here for however many wind turbines that would be done.
When you build a wind turbine park, typically the well, you got to have the orientation, so you got to be the right direction with the wind, but typically you would have all the wind turbines on the peak of the hill
Side
Right.
by side.
in a row. So it's not up and down the hill, it's along the top of the hill. So if you're saying that hillside goes kind of up and down from where your arrow is right now,
Mhm.
then really that's not a suitable location for wind. In terms of the property, I mean.
Right. No, that
Up in Aroostook, there's a ridge in, what's it, Washburn maybe, where they've got probably a dozen of them up on a ridge. All
Right,
side by
they follow
side.
the ridge, right?
Yeah, they go right
Yeah.
along the ridge. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the normal logical way to do it.
Right.
I'd rather invest in solar panels than a wind farm.
Mm.
I
and
think
that's just it. Again, with how sort of blocked off this is, like, we'd have to be getting someone to build a kind of a road to get up here anyways. And then there's not that many spots. And I mean, as Bob mentions, we kind of already got some solar already going on at the transfer station. I don't know who would be investing in a wind turbine here that we would lease out to.
That's a south-facing slope, so as Bob says, if somebody really was determined to put this into alternative energy production of some sort, it probably would be solar at some future point, maybe.
Such a goofy piece of property to do that.
Well,
There's a
that would
lot of
still be-
spaghetti lots. That was how they did it. A lot of
Yeah.
lots like that shape.
well,
Yeah,
in total, that's just 17 and a half acres.
Right.
Some of the solar people that have come and done all the stuff at these big private lots, they usually say it needs to be 20 acres minimum. So
Yeah. Right. So it's,
we'd have to be giving all this up too, I think. Yeah.
so then it'll be a question of the land on either side of it and what's its use or purpose or destiny, or what are people thinking about? Anyway, I think I think we're nearly at the point of adjournment.
Yeah, I
I
was
think
gonna
we
say,
are.
yeah, that's still not enough. Yeah, so I was saying this one, I think we just cut off the water tower, sell everything else off, just talk to the neighbors, because I think just having the land pretty much raises their property value and we can get some taxes from that. But
Is Freddie Storer one of the abutters?
yep, Freddie Store is over here.
But is he one of the abutters of that parcel?
Yep, he's just north of it.
Okay, well, that's notable.
He might.
so that's
be
good.
interested.
That's good.
He might want to get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for all the other properties are pretty self-explanatory. They don't really need too much to go into it. Some are already town forests, some aren't. Some are used for parking. But that's pretty much it for all the town properties, at least what could be done regionally. I guess the short summary is, for a lot of these places, there's not too much the town has planned on. And I think with a little digging, I've pretty much come to the conclusion of they pretty much are mostly to be sold off unless someone wants to really jump in and do something with it or something ambitious.
Yeah, I think the most valuable property we have is one we haven't talked about, and that's the one that, you've already got, potential plans for in terms of
Gray?
what the town, in terms of what the town owns, I would say.
What?
A.D. Gray.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I'm just wondering, Max, would it be possible to give each of these parcels a name so that we would know? Maybe it's a quirky name, but it's a name that allows us to say, oh yeah, I know where that is. And then give the acreage. And we could probably come up with a list of potential uses for each one of them, whether to be sold or to be held in reserve for emergency vehicles or whatever, or for fishing spots. But at least we'd then have that done. and the committee move on.
Yeah, I can have that list done by the next meeting, and then
Be great.
I don't know what I can do for quirky names, but I can have them sort of, I can have some way of identifying them.
We have faith in it, in you.
So Max,
Hmm.
there must be a lot of other properties that the town owns that we haven't talked about that are already being used for some kind of purpose. So it could be a park, it could be a baseball field, could be
Well,
whatever. But
last
I'd be
meeting-
curious to know about those properties as well, because the question would be, are we maximizing that property?
Well, last meeting, I did go through all the properties, at least the ones that are owned by the town, not the utility district or the schools or anything. And you wanted me to more likely just look into 3 or 4 specific ones just to see what can be done. And the ones that I was talking about today, those are the ones that I thought had the most potential, at least. Like a lot should be done, or there was some interpretation from some people at the town office of what could be done for them too. All the other properties are, as I say, they're already either got, some are already pretty straightforward. Like we're not going to do anything different with Philbrook Field unless someone wants to make it a very interesting, controversial decision tonight. We're not doing anything with Miller Ball Field. We're not doing anything with the town forest. We're not doing anything with Dutch Neck Marine Park because, George is here. We don't want to upset George on that one. We're not really doing too much with any of those already recreation spots. So
The key is, Max, when you're looking at, those are assets, right? Those are
Right.
town assets. And so if we're going to be looking at, and what Jim was saying is there anything around or within distance of those lots that are functioning already that could be used better or could be promoted or tied in? I mean, you're trying to think of a strategy or a picture of what parts of town have potential for different types of, like when you're trying to come up with a list of assets and so forth, what would attract a business? Is there anything around there that might attract a specific type of business? That kind of thing when you're beginning to think like that.
well, that's what these properties were. That's what these properties pretty much were. These were the rather unique ones out of all the properties we did have.
No,
Talked
yeah.
about last month.
Right.
Like
I know.
there are still some left, but those are ones that are already pretty much just recreation focused. And
Right.
I don't mind talking about them next time.
No, what I mean is, I wasn't meaning that. I was meaning that when we're trying to get a complete picture of things, like, for instance, that little drive-through coffee place, that's a piece of property that was empty for a long time. It's not town-owned, but there might be other pieces of
Okay.
property around that could take advantage of some of the pieces that are recreationally used, like once we get out of this COVID thing.
So as an example, you mean like when I was talking about like Pine Street, for example, and I mentioned there was Henry Cabot
Yep.
Street between the two. Okay.
Yes, yep,
Why?
exactly. Because it's a very narrow, granted, we were given a task, but it's a very narrow view to just look at the uses of town-owned property and not think also about some of the other properties that are available and which might be used for what, or what might be attractive to a certain type of business. And looking, I love the maps you're using to show us stuff. It's so great to get that bird's eye view to see entrances and exits and water sources and property. Like it makes such a big difference when imagining how a property might be used or
Okay.
its assets or benefits are,
All right. Well, I can
Love the maps.
I can do that for next meeting then. But
I don't know if
think
it's,
I think that'll be fine. And we're at 8:13 now, so we're over a little bit. Should we move ahead with the meeting and try to wrap this thing up?
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Okay, so I believe it or not, I made a note to myself that I wanted to remind everybody that we have these really wonderful doing business in Waldeboro pamphlets. And it looks like we'll get a wonderful opportunity next week to show those off a little bit. So that's wonderful. Now, that's the only old business that I had. Is there any new business that we haven't talked about? All right, then I think we'll adjourn the meeting.
All right. Can I get
Thanks, everybody.
or not?
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Be safe.